What's going on YouTube? Jarrell King here, aka Relevant, multi-platinum music producer and music business coach. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what it takes to start building your home studio. The first thing that you're going to need is an interface. Now, I'll probably do a series of these videos covering each item one by one so that we can fully build out your home studio. But today we're going to start with just the interface. Now, the interface is basically what takes the audio that's out in the real world and turns it into a digital signal that allows that audio to go into your computer or your recording device. So typically it's a small box and it has a microphone input and a headphone input and some kind of cable that will connect the interface to your computer. Now, building a home studio can be expensive. So I'm going to give you 3 different interfaces with different price ranges, starting from the cheapest to the most expensive, so that you have options when building your home studio. Now, I want you to keep in mind that in the music industry, you get what you pay for. So if you go the cheap route, you're going to get cheap equipment and it's going to give you not the best quality. And if you go the more expensive route, you're going to get the best quality because that's just how it works. But I understand that a lot of musicians are starving artists and they don't always have the biggest budget to turn around and go spend a lot of money on equipment. So I'm going to give you guys a few options. Now, the first interface is very affordable. It is the Focusrite Scarlett. Now, there are multiple Focusrite Scarletts. The reason there are multiple, one is because they do different generations, just like they do iPhones. But an additional thing is the features that come with these interfaces. So the one that I'm going to show you first is the Scarlett Solo. Usually when you see the word solo or duo regarding interfaces, it's usually referring to the amount of inputs you have available. So if you see solo, that means that there's one input. And by one input, that means there's one microphone input for you to plug into and record yourself. There's usually also one input for a 1/4-inch cable, which is usually good for if you're going to be recording a live instrument such as a bass or a guitar. So you can plug directly into the interface and still have your other input for your vocal, which is an XLR cable. Here we are looking at the Scarlett Solo. It's very clean, it's very small and compact. You have your input on the front for your microphone. You have your gain, you have phantom power, you have air, you have your headphone jack, instrument input, which is your 1/4-inch cable. You have the gain for that as well. And then you have your volume, which is the monitor. So ultimately your sound coming in and out of your speakers or your headphones. And then you also have a headphone jack and a direct monitor button. Very simple, very easy to use, very popular, specifically because of the price. If you see right here on this Amazon link, this interface is selling for $100. $100. So perfect way for a starter musician to start building their home studio. Now, if you do want to expand this and have multiple inputs, then you can also check out the Duet. There's also a quartet where there's 4 inputs. And all of this makes sense if you're going to be recording multiple people or multiple instruments. But if it's just you by yourself in your home studio, or you plan on having a feature here and there and you guys aren't going to be recording simultaneously, like doing a duet or something like this, then the Scarlett Solo is your best bet and the best bang for your buck for $100. Now, before we go to the second interface, do me a favor, and if you don't mind, hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really helps the channel out and it helps more musicians like yourself find out about what this information is that I'm giving you. So I appreciate it. Now, the second interface that I'm going to show you is the Apogee Duet. So the Apogee Duet has come a long way since it first came out. It also had a solo version at one point, and I think they still offer the solo, where it was one input for your microphone and also one input for your instrument. But just overall, the interface, the sonics, the crispy, the clarity of the Apogee Duet, it is very competitive and will start to set you apart, especially if you have a good microphone and good headphones and good monitors. And I'll make a separate video on all of those so you know exactly which one of those makes the most sense to buy and fits your budget. But for now, this Apogee Duet I would highly recommend, just because one, it's very sleek, it's compact, but it also just delivers such a great quality of output, especially listening back. It's one thing to record through it, of course it sounds great, but listening back, it sounds very, very identical to what you would sound like in real life versus going through a digital device, going into a digital computer, and then being played back into the real life, and not having any type of additional color, or it sounding like muffled or distorted or any of those things. Now, it can sound distorted, but it all depends on how you record, and that's usually bad recording more than it is the device itself. But I highly recommend it. If you have a little more money to spend and you really are starting to consider taking your music career serious, then I would recommend the Apogee Duet as you start to step up your quality and step up your skills and step up your professionalism. Now, as you can see, this link is on Sweetwater, and Sweetwater is one of my favorite sites to buy my music equipment off of. I bought the majority of all of my music equipment off of Sweetwater, if not Reverb. They always take very good care of me. And one of the things that I really liked when I first started using Sweetwater, because I too at one point was a struggling, starving artist, is they actually had a payment plan. They allowed you to buy equipment in payments. It wasn't like a credit check or a firm where they're like charging you interest and you're paying way more for whatever it is that you're buying. No, they simply just broke the payments up into a few different payments depending on what it costs for you to buy that piece of equipment to begin with. So that was another reason why I like Sweetwater. I wanted to show you this one. On here right now, Sweetwater, this is being sold for $550, and it looks like there is a sale going on right now. It's typically $650. This interface used to be about $1,000, so to see that it's almost half the price about 10 years after I had mine shows that it still has carried its weight. Now, if you don't have this $500 or the $600, then that's exactly why I made this channel, because my goal for you is to be able to run your music career like a business. And part of being a business is you need to be able to invest in that business, which includes buying assets. And your equipment in your music studio are your assets. But if you don't have the budget to do this, how are you going to run your business? Most businesses require capital. They need some type of funding for you to get the business off the ground and up and running. And that's exactly why I created a full training called The Full-Time Musician, which is an online training that I put together where I'll walk you through step by step from beginning to end every single thing that you need to do to turn your passion for music into a full functioning business that you can eventually make enough income from where you can make music full time. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, the link is in the description below. Feel free to check it out whenever you feel like it. Now, my final favorite interface for anyone who's going to have their own home studio, top of the top, best interface that I've ever used in a home studio, and I'll even see them in professional studios all the time, usually in like the B or the C room, is the Universal Audio Apollo Twin. Although I loved having my Apogee Duet, when I got my Apollo Twin, which I have two of them, I have the full rack version, which is the 8 input, and then I also have the twin desktop interface. It changed everything. I fell in love. That's why I still have it now. One of the reasons I love this interface is, one, it's made by Universal Audio. So Universal Audio is a legendary music equipment company. They've been in the industry for a very long time. But one of the reasons I even switched over to using the Universal Audio Apollo Twin versus my Apogee was because of the plugins that were available when you bought the Apollo Twin. When you buy an Apollo Twin, especially when you buy it new and it's unregistered, you get access to 2 free plugins that are UA plugins, UA being Universal Audio. UA makes the best plugins when it comes to vintage gear. Gear being like the actual gear that you would go to like one of those big studios where you see like the big SSL or the Neve board, and you see like the island behind the board, and it's just like a wall full of all of this different equipment, right? That is called outboard gear. And when you're a music nerd like somebody like me, you love outboard gear because it's analog. And us music heads, we all know that analog is the best way to capture audio. When you run audio through analog gear, it just adds a certain level of quality, warmth, or a certain sound depending on what gear it is that you're running it through. These interfaces are important because they're taking your analog sound and they're turning it digital. And you want to be able to take that analog sound and make it sound the best that it can sound. And then when you make it digital, it still sounds the best that it can sound. And that's why it's important to have good quality gear. When you have a Universal Audio Apollo Twin, and you get access to these 2 free plugins. You can always get more, but you have to pay for them. Universal Audio is the only company that I know of where they have contracts with all of the original gear makers, and they have the specs to design the plugin to function exactly like the original gear functions. The same people who made the original gear, if they were to make a plugin version of it, it would be the UA plugin version of it, which you would get when you buy an Apollo Twin. This interface, I highly recommend. This is the best interface that you can have in your home studio. If you go to any small studio, you'll probably see this interface in there. In addition, you can actually daisy chain these type of interfaces, meaning if you have more than one and you need more inputs than what you currently have, you can actually take another twin and connect it to the other twin, and instead of having 2 inputs, you'd have 4 inputs. Like, how cool is that? So I highly recommend that if you want to build your own home studio, you go with any of these 3 interfaces, from cheapest to most expensive. And if you want to buy any of them, I'll leave links in the description box below for you to buy them. Because again, if you don't want to be spending a whole lot of money on going to the studio every week and paying for engineers and all that other stuff, then the best thing that you could do is build your own home studio. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and hit the like button or hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel already. But that's all I have for you guys today. Until I make another video, I'll see you soon.